7th graders? In lesson 1.5, we're going to review the rules for adding and subtracting integers. What's an integer? Again, what's an integer? What's that term integer mean? It says definition up there. See if you can find that term. Armand? Integer.
It's a whole number.
It's a whole number that's either
Positive or negative.
positive or negative. Yes. Positive and negative whole numbers. We're going to be practicing adding and subtracting positive and negative whole numbers. Okay? Now, the best way to learn this is to think of real-world examples where you are adding and subtracting positive and negative numbers. So, where are positive and negative numbers used a lot in the real world? What are some real-world examples of positive and negative numbers?
Temperatures.
Temperature, exactly. That's one of the best ones to think of, is temperature. Okay? We're very familiar with negative degrees out here in Minnesota.
Yep.
Okay? Olivia?
Thanks.
Thanks. Money. Yep. Money. Any others? Those are probably the two best ones, most common ones that you're familiar with. Because we think about weather and temperature every day. Okay? Some people think about money and how the money fluctuates, what's happening to money every day. Positive moves, negative moves, temperatures rising and falling. So, when the numbers have the same sign, so when you are adding two negative numbers, what we're doing is simply adding their absolute values. And we talked about absolute value yesterday. So you're adding the two absolute values and then using the sign of the numbers. So 5 plus 5 is 10. Negative 5 plus negative 5 is what, class? What?
10.
Negative 5 plus negative 5.
It's
They would
negative
have the
10.
same sign.
Negative 10.
Negative 10. Yep. Now, when the numbers have the opposite sign, what you have to do is subtract their absolute values, and then the answer is the remaining amount. Okay? Subtract their absolute values, and the answer is the remaining amount. What you should do is subtract the smaller absolute value from the larger absolute value. And so we'll look at some examples of that. What if you see a double negative in the answer? Minus, minus. Yep, they cancel each other out. Minus negative becomes just plus. Minus negative becomes just plus. So an example like 5 minus negative 12 just changes to 5 plus 12. Okay? Let's look at some examples from your homework. The first one. Do those two numbers have the same sign or opposite signs? Number 1, yeah.
Number 1 has.
Do they have the same sign or opposite signs? Look at this. 9 plus negative 12.
Same sides are opposite.
No, are they the same sign as, or are they opposite?
They're opposite.
Yeah. One's positive and one's negative. So what we have to do is subtract or find the difference of their absolute values. So you'd have to do the absolute value of negative 12 minus the absolute value of 9. Or you can think that in your head. Okay? The absolute value of negative 12 is 12 minus 9 is 3. Just listen. So you can think negative 12 plus 9 Those are opposite moves on the temperature. So the difference is 3, and since the negative is more negative than the 9 is positive, or if you think of it this way, on a number line, this is 0. If we start at 9 and we do a negative move of 12, we're going to end up in the negative. Okay? Because the absolute value of negative 12 is greater than the absolute value of 9. Alright? So, when you're doing these, think this. Think, if you're starting in the negative and you're moving right, how far to the right are you moving? Are you getting all the way to the positive or not? Or if you're starting in the positive side, and then doing a negative move, would you be going past 0? That will tell you whether or not your answer should be negative or positive. Those are the hardest ones to think about. Thinking about which is greater, the negative number or the positive number. And it's really more about the greater absolute value, isn't it? If the absolute value is more, then you're going to end up on the opposite side of 0.
Why is it 12 minus 9 at the end?
Because the absolute value of negative 12 is 12, and the absolute value of 9 is 9.
How come not 9 minus 12?
9 minus 12? That's what we're doing. I'm showing you how you get 9 minus 12 and find a difference of 3. Okay?
Well, can't we just do 9 minus 12?
Yes. Yep. And Armand, when you're doing 9 minus 12, what you're really considering is 9 has 9 spaces away from 0. Negative 12 is 12 spaces to the left. So that's going to take you past the 0 on the number line.
So it would be negative 3?
So the answer is negative 3. Right? Number 2?
Yeah.
Absolutely. What's number 2, Matt?
Negative 4 plus 10.
That's 10. Yep. Now, again, these are opposites. One is negative,
So it's going to be
one
a
is
negative.
positive.
It's going to be a negative then.
No.
It's going to be a positive.
Well, this is a bigger absolute value. 10 is 10 spaces from 0. Negative 4 is only 4 spaces. 10 positive spaces and 4 negative spaces. So, we can picture this on a number line like this. Negative 4 plus 10 means 10 to the right. Any positive move is a move to the right on a number line. So where would we end up? Yeah, at positive 6.
I did a kind of a different one. What I did is since it's a negative 4, I just subtracted 4, 10 minus 4, and then I just got the answer. So I didn't.
What is the number 1? What is the parentheses?
Yeah, why
What do the parentheses do is they separate the two signs. Sometimes you see the parentheses separating the two signs. They separating the plus sign and the minus sign. Sometimes you see it that way. Sometimes you'll just see it written like 9 plus negative 12 like that. But the parentheses are just separating the two signs. The negative sign and the plus sign. Nate?
How do you get the absolute value?
The absolute value is the difference in the two numbers.
Well, I mean, like, how'd you change the problem from 9 plus negative 12 to 12 minus 9?
It doesn't though.
Look, right now.
Look.
Look at the line graph that you made right there.
Yeah.
And then you do 9, and then you move backward
12 spaces.
Yeah.
So 9 spaces to the right, 12 spaces to the left. Those are absolute values. Spaces are absolute values. We talked about that yesterday. The absolute value of a number is how many spaces it takes up.
Yeah, but is it negative 3 or 3?
Well,
What did that subtract?
the answer is negative 3 because you'd end up, look, Nate, you'd end up in the negative space, in the negative side of 0, right? So the answer is negative 3.
Well, what's the point of that problem? Absolute value of 12. Yeah, what's the point of absolute value?
Well, I guess.
Because when you are subtracting numbers, when you're finding the difference of the numbers, you have to find the difference of their absolute value. Okay? Here's why. What if you just subtracted negative 12 minus 9? Since these are opposites, we have to find the difference. So we have to do minus. Right? You have to do minus to find their difference. But if you just did, let's see. If you just did negative 12 minus 9, you don't get negative 3. You get negative 21. So that's not the answer.
No, I'm not sure that was.
No, I'm not. I didn't say you did. Okay? What I'm telling you is that in order to find the difference of these two, you have to use their absolute values. You have to use the spaces that they would take up on a number line. Okay, so that's what I'm showing you. That's what I'm showing you, to try to deepen your understanding of what you're doing. Okay? Allison. Can you read that problem for us, Allison? You said it's number 8? Pay attention, everyone. Look up here. You have to read the question to me. Read the question. Well, outside of what, Princess? I don't even know what the problem is that you're talking about. You have to read the question to me. Read the problem. What's the number? Or what is it? Negative, and then parentheses?
Negative 2. He just makes it a positive
Negative 2.
Yeah, so that's just a positive 2.
Then what?
Plus 9. So
Plus 9.
that's just a positive 2.
Yes, negative, yep. A minus negative is just a positive. It's kind of like the opposite of negative. Remember when we had the opposite of the absolute value? This is the opposite of the negative, which is just a plus. Positive 2 plus 9 is what that means. Okay? Any other questions before I let you get started?
Negative 3 minus 6.
Negative 3 minus 6 is negative 3 plus negative 6. Alright? And you add, sit down, class. Strike one. What if they have the same sign? In other words, what if you have negative 3 minus 6? These are two negative numbers, so they have the same sign. How would you deal with this? You put a plus sign and add them. Remember, in your notes it says if they have the same sign, you add them. And both of these numbers have the same sign. Negative 3 and negative 6. They're both negative. Negative, negative, so add them. Okay? When the two numbers have the same sign, you add them, okay? Elsie. Yeah, insert a plus sign in front of the minus sign. Yep. That is helpful because then you know whether you're adding or subtracting. Okay? Whether you're adding a positive or a negative. The sign in front of the number tells you if that number is positive or negative. Okay? So, you kind of have to change your thinking when it comes to subtraction. Subtraction is just adding negative. Just like subtract -3, subtract 6, or -3 minus 6 is really adding a -6. So you have to change your thinking when it comes to subtraction. You're no longer doing subtraction like you did before. What you're doing is adding negative. And that's how you have to think going forward when you're doing algebra. Is you have to think about adding negative. Okay? Oh, no. No, not just using your calculator. Otherwise, I'm going to not let you use your calculator on the quiz on Friday. Okay?
I'm not just using my calculator.
Oh, good. I thought you just said, no, you just use this.
No, I said you just can do that. Just do minus. You could just minus, you could just do 175 minus 87, and then you can get your answer.
Okay.
Or you can do like negative